we were able to render the basic HTML content. In the current video, we are going to get input through HTML forms and try to make a computation and try to render the result. So as part of that, we would be getting input as weight and height, and we try to compute the BMI. So in order to do that, we will be using HTML forms. So just type forms and press enter, and here you can mention it as weight of a person, and you can give the colon, and you can use the input element in HTML forms, inside the HTML forms. So you can mention the type of the element, where you can indicate it as text, and the name of the element. Here I will call it as weight. So this is a variable name which I'll be using or accessing it later in views.py to compute the BMI. So in the same way, I'll be having height of a person, and once again I'll be just copying and pasting it here. So input, and let me call this variable as height. So now I have the both weight and height. I also need to submit the form so that it makes a computation and it shows the result. So in order to do that, I will be using the submit button. So there are various buttons on HTML forms. So I can access that by mentioning it in type. So I would like to have submit and submit button. So this is the basic content which I would like to place it in forms. And now I would like to access the variables which I've created in home.html, which is weight and height. So this I would like to access here. So before I do that, I also need to mention the action which I would like to perform. So here we need to mention the method names which we are going to write in views, and also the type of access, which is using the post. So let me mention that here. So once we do this, so you can go back to views.py and create a method called as BMI, and every method in views should have one of the argument as request. And now we would like to access those weight and height into Python variable. So I'll call it as an integer, and use the request.post to get the content weight and height. So I'll be saving height in h variable, so I'll be using the same. So let me copy this and paste it here and change it to height. So I've got both weight and height. So now I need to make the computation. So I'll call this as my BMI variable, and so which is nothing but BMI can be computed by using weight in kgs divided by height in meters squares. So I'll be using this weight divided by height, which is h. You can square it, and so we would like to return this in a new HTML file. So for that, first let's return that. So in return, we use render package, and request should be the input, one of the input for this render, and we should mention what HTML file we are going to render. Here I'll be going to call it as bmi.html, which I did not create yet. I'll be going to create that, and I also need to mention the context dictionary here. So in the context dictionary, the key should be the variable name through which you would like to access. So let me call that as b to access BMI, or maybe I'll just use it as capital letters BMI, and mention the value. So the value should be the my BMI value, so the computation which we made. So this I'm going to render in through bmi.html. So I need to create a new file called as bmi.html, and within this I need to use tags and mention bmi of a person as within this double flower braces you can mention the variable name. So here we have used bmi as the variable name, so whatever we write it here in views as a key, that should be mentioned in here. So we are rendering this bmi.html as a result. So in order to do that, first we need to include this bmi method in urls pattern. So currently we don't have that in urls pattern, so put a comma because this is a list. So include bmi as one of the method, views dot our method name is bmi, so and name of the uh, so we can also give this as bmi. So once you mention the url pattern, save it, and so let us now, so we have got an error here. So it says that cal.views has no attribute bmi. So let's save this file. So if we save this, so you can see here the changes which are visible. So before we finally conclude, we need to make one more change in home.html. So in forms, so you need to mention what is called as CSRF token in order to properly get the output. Maybe we can try it before including the token. So let's see what kind of out we are able to get it. So let's give some weight, so something like say 70 kgs, and height of a person, say, so I'll give it as 2 meters. So it's an integer, so let's run it. So you are seeing that CSRF token missing, so let's include that and get back to the result. So you need to include the CSRF token, which is so which means you need to place CSRF underscore token. So just save this file, and now you can do a control C and python manage.py run server, and click on this link and go back to this. So weight of a person, so you can enter any weight, say some 70 kgs, and height of a person 2 meters, and you get, so this is the bmi of a person. So in order to make the HTML form much more better, so you can include, in order to have one after the other in a different line, so you can include br after each line, and maybe you can also include br here to have more spacing. So br, so that's it. So now let us see, let us render it once again. You can do control C, you can run the server, and you can go to the link where, so this is weight of a person. You can mention here, say 70, and maybe height of a person, say 2 meters, and you can submit it. So this is the bmi of a person. So that's it. So in this video we have seen how to create HTML forms and how to access the input which we get through HTML forms in views, and make computation in views, and try to render the result through a new HTML file.